possible destruction or destruction itself. So reading it's just foundational. Now, if you look, one of the things he points out, if you look, one of the first and most important things, there are many types of reading, but basically there are three fundamental things that people read for. One is amusement. Less so today than ever before. Traditionally, people read for amusement as a pastime, and you would often see people just on trains or before that even just sitting with a book. Henry David Thoreau talks about meeting a farmer in Massachusetts out near Concord, where he was staying near Walden Pond, who was plowing a field, and he had Homer's Iliad in his pocket in Greek. And then when he would take time to rest, he would sit down and he would read Homer's Iliad. And Thoreau said, I started discussing it with him because at that time, Massachusetts had about a 98% literacy rate. They've never achieved that before. And one of the things they studied in grammar schools was Latin and Greek. So here's a peasant farmer, who's reading Homeric Greek, which is, it's difficult Greek. There's four Greeks. There's Homeric, there's Attic Greek, which is the Greek of Plato, and then you have Koine Greek, which is New Testament Greek, and now you have modern Greek. And each one is a very distinct language. The Homeric is really the most vast in terms of vocabulary, just like Jahili Arabic. It's much vaster than what comes after. I mean, the Quran reduces the vocabulary considerably because the Quran was meant to be understood by lots and lots of people. So the actual number of words in the Quran are far less than exist in the Arabic language. And there's no really difficult words in the Quran. And it's very interesting. The Quran uses very easy to grasp terms. There's what they call gharib al-Quran, but generally it's not difficult Arabic in that way. So he meets this, and he said, when he started discussing it, he really didn't have an idea of the themes of the book, but he just thought it was the greatest yarn he'd ever read. This yeoman, he's reading it for amusement. Now, Socrates quotes Homer a lot for edification, like he uses him as a source of wisdom. And it could be argued that the whole foundation of Greek civilization is Homer. Is the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? But you could read the Iliad purely for amusement. It's just a great yarn for somebody. Now that people read like People magazine, you see people reading People and Self and Us, right? All these, it used to be Life. Now it's Self, right? So they read these, and these are kind of these opiate magazines out there, just everybody just reads them, and they're kind of meaningless tripe, and there's nothing really in them. You're not going to be edified to find out that so-and-so's got bulimia, or so-and-so's getting a divorce, or Angelina is upset with what's the other one? No, the girl that Jennifer, there you go. See, we know all these things because it's in your face everywhere, right? You can't go to the supermarket. My mom's 90 and she was at the supermarket and there was an old lady with her. I mean, she's not old for my mom because she was probably only around 75. My mom says old is 10 years, whatever you are, older than whatever you are. So for my mom, 100 is old now. But, this older lady looks at my mom. They're looking at all the magazines on that rack, National Enquirer and Spectator, whatever they are. People, and she just looked at my mom and she said, "Aren't you glad we're on the way out?" So what's interesting is if you look at somebody like Dorothy Sayers. I mean, she was lamenting how bad it was in the 1940s. I mean, they could only, I think they would just drop dead by what they see now. But that's one type of reading. Then you have informational reading like Time or Newsweek, just to get some information like what's happening in Iraq, or what's happening with the Republican race, things like that. So you get type of information. And that is readily, it's easy to read. It's not that hard if you're educated. I mean, they're writing probably at about 7th or 8th grade level. I mean, that's it. Most books now, according to, a friend of mine who's was asked to write a book for a major publisher, was asked, at what level do you want? He said, generally the books that we publish now are at a 6th grade level. If you look at, according to, studies of the language of debates, Kennedy's and Nixon's debates were at about 11th grade level of understanding, high school. Lincoln-Douglas debates were at graduate school level. Right? If you just analyze the language and the type of level they were speaking. Now it's about 5th to 6th grade level. That's what they're talking at. So this is a kind of dumbing down, but people, that's the level that information is being written on. The last reason to read is to learn something, for understanding, what he calls comprehensive reading. It's actually to illuminate your understanding. Now what's interesting is one of the things that Adler argues is he says that people will say, oh, I can't read that book, it's over my head. And he said that is the very reason why you should read it. Because if you always read things that are at your level, you will never improve yourself. You won't get anything. But when you read something that's over your head, it forces you to, like pull-ups, right? The bar's over your head. And so as you pull up, right, it's really hard at first, but if you keep trying, it gets easier and easier. You can do more and more. Now, one of the things St. Augustine said about his education, and he was educated in what are called now, in our tradition, the liberal arts. Even though most liberal arts majors cannot, if you ask them what are the liberal arts, they won't be able to tell you. Even though they have a bachelor's in the liberal arts or a master's in the liberal arts, they won't be able to tell you actually what they refer to. But Augustine wrote a book called, it's not really a book, but it's an essay on Christian doctrine, in which he argues that it was essential for people to know these language arts before they went into the Bible to understand it. And he identifies them as grammar, rhetoric, and logic. And what he said, by mastering these arts, he said he was able to read, he was able to understand anything that he read and to articulate anything he thought. I mean, that's the definition of a literate person. That they can understand what they read and they can articulate what they think. Because a lot of people can't articulate their thoughts. I wish I could put it into words, what I'm trying to say. But they don't have that. That's a skill. Some people have it more naturally than others, but it is a skill that can be acquired. It's not magic. You have to have words. You have to know how words are put together. And so